More than 6 million pages, thousands of photos and videos, decades of hidden crimes, all pointing to one of the most disturbing criminal networks of our time. These are known as the Epstein files. On January 30th, 2026, the US Department of Justice released over 3 million pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire financier who abused underage girls while being surrounded by some of the most powerful people on earth. But here's the real question. If the evidence existed for years, why did the truth come out only now? And more importantly, how many names are still missing from this story? Today, we break down everything we know: fact versus fiction, evidence versus silence, and what this means for justice. Jeffrey Epstein was a financier who built relationships with presidents, princes, scientists, and celebrities. But behind that influence, investigators say, he was running a systematic sex trafficking network. According to the US Department of Justice, Epstein abused over 250 underage girls. Other reports suggest the real number may be much higher, possibly over 1,000 victims. The FBI confirmed at least 40 minors, with ages ranging from 12 to 23. This wasn't random. From the late 1990s to 2019, Epstein targeted vulnerable girls, often paying around $200 per visit and encouraging them to recruit others. In 2005, Palm Beach police launched a 13-month investigation. By 2007, federal prosecutors had prepared a 53-page indictment that could have put Epstein in prison for life. But that didn't happen. In 2008, U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta approved a controversial non-prosecution deal. Epstein pleaded guilty to just 2 state charges, served 13 months, and was allowed to leave jail up to 16 hours a day. The deal also granted immunity to potential co-conspirators, and the victims were never informed, violating federal law. A later DOJ review criticized Acosta's judgment but imposed no punishment. The result was clear. Epstein remained free for another decade. So what's actually inside the Epstein files? The documents include FBI investigation records, court testimony, and internal DOJ memos explaining why certain charges were or were not filed. There are emails with powerful figures, flight logs from Epstein's private jets, and photos and videos seized from his properties. The releases came in 3 major waves. In January 2024, a court ordered the unsealing of documents from Ghislaine Maxwell's case. But most of that information was already known. On December 19, 2025, the first release under the Epstein Files Transparency Act followed. It was heavily redacted, drawing immediate criticism. Then, on January 30, 2026, the largest release so far.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images.
The Department of Justice admits that up to 6 million pages may exist, but says it has met its legal obligations. What makes these files important is what they confirm. They show the FBI began investigating Epstein as early as 2006. That prosecutors had identified dozens of victims before the 2008 plea deal, and that multiple employees and assistants helped facilitate his crimes. The files also reveal Epstein kept detailed records, including discs labeled with victims' names, contact books, and flight logs linking him to hundreds of influential people. But just as telling is what's missing. Large sections of witness interviews are absent. Much of the grand jury testimony remains fully redacted, and documents that could identify other perpetrators are still hidden.
I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17.
14 years old.
This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
There are about 1,000 of us.
Let's focus on the victims. Their stories are central to understanding this case. The numbers are staggering. The Department of Justice documented over 250 underage victims. Some reports suggest the total could exceed 1,000 individuals. Investigations in Palm Beach identified dozens of victims. These weren't random incidents. There was a systematic pattern. Victims were often recruited from vulnerable backgrounds. They were paid modest sums and sometimes encouraged to bring others into the network, creating a recruitment chain. The victims came from across the United States and internationally, including local communities and countries in South America and Europe. Some survivors have spoken publicly, highlighting the scope of the case, while many others remain anonymous, protected by court orders. It's critical to understand. These were children who were harmed and exploited by a sophisticated criminal operation. And for decades, the justice system failed them. One of the most controversial parts of the Epstein case is his connection to powerful people. And this is where we need to be especially careful, separating facts from speculation. What we know is this. Jeffrey Epstein had relationships with many high-profile individuals, including Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Britain's Prince Andrew, along with scientists, academics, and business leaders. The files contain photographs and correspondence linking Epstein to political and business figures. But here's the key distinction. Appearing in Epstein's contact book, photos or flight logs does not mean someone knew about or participated in his crimes. In July 2025, the Department of Justice stated it found no evidence of a client list. Many people connected to Epstein also cut ties before his crimes became public. There are, however, cases with legal outcomes. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted in 2021 and sentenced to 20 years for helping recruit underage girls. Prince Andrew denied allegations made by Virginia Roberts Giuffre, but later settled the lawsuit without admitting wrongdoing. What the files do not show is just as important. They have not revealed a verified client list, proof that most contacts knew about the crimes, or evidence of a broader conspiracy beyond Epstein and Maxwell. That doesn't rule out other perpetrators. But it does mean this case must be discussed using evidence, not assumptions. So why are these Epstein files being released now? The answer lies in politics and public pressure. After Epstein's death in 2019, questions never stopped. During the 2024 presidential campaign, Donald Trump publicly said he would release the files. That promise turned into action in November 2025, when Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act with rare bipartisan support, almost unanimous in both chambers. On November 19, 2025, President Trump signed the law ordering the Justice Department to release Epstein-related files within 30 days. But when the deadline arrived in December 2025, only partial files were released, heavily redacted. Then, on January 30, 2026, over 3 million additional pages were made public. What's important is that this wasn't a partisan issue. Lawmakers from both parties pushed together, and polls showed 90% of Americans supported releasing the files, with victims' identities protected. Still, controversy followed. Critics accused the administration of over-redaction, missing documents, and even political interference, turning the release into a national flashpoint and raising new questions instead of settling old ones. So where does this leave us? The Epstein files show a systemic failure of justice. A man who abused hundreds received a deal that let him walk free for years. When he was finally charged, he died before trial. One accomplice is in prison, but serious questions about others remain unanswered. What these files have done is important. They've revealed the scale of the crimes, documented prosecutorial failures, and created a public record that can't be erased. But they are also incomplete. Not all evidence has been released. No additional perpetrators have been prosecuted. And for many survivors, justice is still out of reach. What happens next matters. Congressional oversight continues. Survivors keep demanding accountability. And public pressure remains the driving force behind transparency. This case leaves us with clear lessons. No amount of power should place someone above the law. Victims must be protected and believed. And accountability cannot stop with one person. The Epstein files aren't just about one criminal. They're about a system that failed, and our responsibility to make sure it doesn't fail again. For the survivors, this story isn't over, and neither should our demand for the truth.